film begins with a birthday celebration for the Duncan family, showing their happy bond in the present. William and Kat play softball, sharing a father-daughter moment with their favorite sport. During dinner, the parents express their concern over Kat prioritizing her sport over her studies, while she insists that she can do both and that she will win the game elsewhere at a strip club called The Den, featuring the famous band called Feather Boys. Meanwhile, her boss, Donnie, beats a man and mercilessly kills him. At that moment, his two sons, Rory and Danny, appear. Danny receives his first gun, unleashing his criminal potential. Back at the Duncan house, William and Kat go out to get tacos after their victory. The man orders tacos at a Mexican restaurant while the young woman stays in the car. Unfortunately, the Feather Boys find them and force Kat to get out of the car. In response, she begs for her life, offering everything she has. However, she is seen as Danny's first task to officially become one of the gang. As a result, he kills the girl without remorse, and by the time William comes out of the restaurant, it is too late. In another scene, we see a man feeling frustrated after justice fails him, as his daughter's killer only receives a sentence of 5 to 7 years in prison. Despite this, William reluctantly accepts the deal for the sake of the case. His disbelief and frustration increase when he is deemed an inadmissible witness due to his concussion sustained during the fight. During the trial, the man decides not to press charges when he concludes that it would be better to take justice into his own hands. Because of this, he allows Danny to be released and follows him home in his car. He waits until nightfall to execute his plan, and after running over the criminal, he kills him with a bat and leaves the scene. Upon returning home, he quickly cleans his car and disposes of all evidence related to his crime. He then has a brief conversation with his wife, who is watching a family video. And afterwards, he is overwhelmed by deep emotions as he realizes he has committed a grave act that he will never be able to undo. Elsewhere, the Feather Boys arrive at their club where Rory hands his father the money collected on the streets. However, he is not satisfied, so he warns him that he will not let him go easily the next time he falls short of money. After that, he receives the shocking news of his brother's death, so they immediately go to the crime scene, and reality hits him when he sees Danny in a body bag. The next day, Detective Chen visits William as a potential suspect in Danny's crime. Although William insists he had nothing to do with it, his wife confronts him after the police leave. Meanwhile, Rory is determined to kill his brother's murderer, so he orders his men to search for William, and finally, they find him working on his laptop outside a cafe. They take the opportunity to ambush him from behind, but fortunately, the man manages to counter them just in time. He then tries to escape. However, he is eventually caught, though the protagonist manages to flee after killing one of the men and then reports the criminals to a passing police patrol. When he gets home, he feels threatened and locks the doors. At this point, Jen suggests calling Chen for protection. At the crime scene, the police discover that this is another member of the Feather Boys, turning it into a serial crime. At that moment, Chen receives a call from William, and then they meet at his house, where the detective confirms his suspicion that the man is involved in the murders. He warns him that he has just started a war against Rory, and he also reveals William's Marine record, noting that he can fend for himself. However, he still grants the protagonist's request to protect his wife by stationing a patrol car outside his house. After that, a car smuggler named Dante enters Rach's illegal auto repair shop, where he sells contraband car parts on the black market. He sells the car in exchange for money, but instead receives a bag of high-quality weapons that he could sell for an enormous amount that night. William confesses to Jen that he killed Danny as revenge for the murder of his daughter. Suddenly, a patrol car leaves the area after someone throws a bottle at it, allowing Rory and Donnie to enter the house. Their brief conversation quickly escalates into the death of Jen, and William is shot down on the ground in a pool of blood. Next, we see the protagonist in the hospital, emotionally anguished and physically helpless. He attempts to escape and, in doing so, expresses his unwillingness to live. However, thanks to the medical staff, he manages to calm down. After days of therapy, he regains his ability to walk, so he disguises himself in a janitor's uniform and easily leaves the place. He then stays at the Western Motel where Dante is also lodging and catches him stealing someone's briefcase. The next day, William picks up his money from the bank And after that, Dante offers him his help upon learning of his conflict with the Feather Boys. Although William hesitates at first, he eventually asks him for help in finding a weapon. Dante proudly shows him his weapon collection in his office and explains his own similar encounter with the Feather Boys in the past, where he was shot in the shoulder and lost his cousin, implying that they both share the same hatred. For his part, William buys all the weapons, ammunition, an old jacket, and a car to set the stage for his final revenge against the Feather Boys. He practices his shooting accuracy in an open field for days before visiting his family's grave to pay homage. That night, he prepares to attack Zach, the trusted man of Rory. He sneaks into Zach's house and they engage in an intense hand-to-hand combat. Despite being overwhelmed by his opponent's size and strength, he manages to overcome him, and hours later, the police find Zach's lifeless body. Because of this, Chen visits Donnie's office to warn them that his conflict with William is not over, since he is still alive and is definitely involved in the murders of Rory's men. The detective advises them to disappear for a while. However, they do not take his words seriously and continue with their out-of-line activities. William sees Chen leaving the establishment, feeling betrayed that even the authorities he trusts are turning a blind eye to his crimes. After this, he quietly approaches him with his pistol, and they enter the house together. There, the protagonist accuses him of being a traitor and insults him for not doing his job of protecting his community, despite Chen's opposition to the massacre that William is planning. Chen warns him that everything will soon be over, but if anyone gets in his way, he will kill them. The next day, he hides in his car parked outside the club and silently finishes off one of the men. Then he goes directly to Donnie's office, surprising him, who already knows what's about to happen, and tells him to do it at once on his behalf. William starts a conversation about the visceral thrill he felt the first time he killed someone. However, he admits that right now he feels no emotion, and then he asks if that is what he felt when he killed his wife. With that said, he ends the man's life. William takes Donnie's phone, calls Rory, and without showing remorse informs him about his father's death, though Rory shows no emotion. In the following scene, the Feather Boys return to the club and find Donnie's lifeless body. At that moment, Rory shows no pain, not for his father's sake, but for William's. Suddenly, William speaks through the loudspeaker to inform them that he is still present in the club. And because of this, he begins to sing a song by Kuna for them, but quickly turns violent. When a shootout begins, he takes one of Rory's men and threatens to kill him, to which the man kills him instead. Fortunately, William manages to escape, though with a shoulder injury. When he reaches the motel, he crawls up the stairs while Dante watches him. At the same time, Luna reports William's location at the motel, and shortly after, Rory arrives there with some of his men. They ask at the reception for William's room, but the receptionist refuses to give it, which is why the criminal kills him without mercy. Next, William attacks first together with Dante. However, being outnumbered, the duo has no option but to flee from the motel while being chased by the criminal gang. The pursuit continues until nightfall, during which Dante tries to lose them on the train tracks. Afterward, he calls his friend Rach, who helps them enter the garage just in time. Once inside the garage, Rach's gang shoots Rory's vehicle, effectively stopping it. However, Rory wastes no time and bursts through the garage. Although the thug remains almost unscathed, Dante and William suffer injuries. At that moment, Rory shares his pain over his brother's death, taking advantage of his opponent's vulnerability. William seizes the opportunity to grab a screwdriver and stabs it into Rory's neck, causing Rory to die quickly with an insulting smile on his face, meant to remind William never to forget him. Shortly after, sirens sound and Dante manages to escape while the police surround the area. The officers realize the horrible crime scene, but also see it as a victory since the Feather Boys no longer exist. The film ends with Chen approaching William, who offers to be arrested. However, he soon takes his last breath and dies, having finally completed his revenge.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.